Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folari, and my guest this morning is Dr. Nick Idoko. Thank you very much for coming on, Nick. Dr. Idoko is a public affairs analyst, but he's a communication consultant and development expert. He's also president, lead consultant, Africa Network for Peace and Justice. And of course, well, I shouldn't say of course, but he does lecture as well. An adjunct lecturer at the Pan-Atlantic University. I said I shouldn't say of course because not all doctors happen to be lecturers. So thank you very much for coming on, Nick.
Yes,
so excitement in the air. The transition is just around the corner, and everybody and his cousin, even his dog, has, ideas for what the priorities should be. We've heard it. The economy, that's the priority. In fact, I remember one interesting headline from, I think, last year. It's the economy, stupid. You remember that?
Yes.
Some people think it's the economy. Others say it's tackling corruption. Yet others say it's the energy sector. You fix that, talking about all the problems we have. Right now, we're in the middle of a crisis, a fuel crisis, as you know. I was just reading something that's not going to go away anytime soon, considering what's going on. I understand marketers are very, very apprehensive that, look, General Buhari, with his reputation, might just come on board and to decide that he's not going to, as a matter of course, pay all these bills, many of which are thought to be bogus. As you know, in that whole sector, there are those, and they are not a few, who are saying that the whole matter of a subsidy is a sham, from their own analysis, that there really isn't any subsidy. I know that's a point that the marketers are going to be very, very sensitive about, but these are all the balls up in the air. What are your thoughts as to which of these important things, or perhaps other ones that I didn't mention, should engage the Buhari administration primarily once they're in place?
Yes, thank you very much for hiring. I'm also looking at the gamut of issues that you are looking at. And I'm imagining how the president-elect, when he takes over, how he's going to begin. But these areas you mentioned are priority areas, no doubt, but they're all interconnected. You didn't mention insecurity or security.
Security, yes, of
That
course.
is even where to start. Security of lives and property.
Okay.
Nigerians
Because
must
we've
be
got to have
secure.
a conducive environment for anything else.
Nothing as at the moment. So Nigerians must feel secure. They must feel safe in their country to pursue their businesses and other engagements, that will better their well-being and their welfare. So it's one area that he's going to tackle. He has mentioned 3 areas. He mentioned insecurity, he mentioned corruption, and he mentioned the economy. That he's going to fix the economy. But they're all interconnected. The issue of insecurity and corruption, they're all part of the economy. Because if you have a secure environment, then business will thrive, and we grow the economy, and we improve development. So that's one. Second, the issue of corruption. People have said all kinds of things about corruption, that it's going to be distracted if it starts probes and all. It's not about probe. It's about building institutions that will stop people from even engaging in corruption in the first place.
Is it so much
That's even where to start.
Is it so much building them or strengthening them?
Well, strengthening, but also building.
If you say building institutions, is it that we didn't have these
No,
institutions in the
we
past?
do have institutions, but strengthening institutions, I think you have the right word, strengthening institutions, because they're already there. They are in existence. So he must, focus on strengthening institutions, because it is only when you have institutions that can rein in people, that can stop people from even thinking about engaging in corruption. You build a system. The system must be in place. We, as humans, are primarily, criminally minded. In Germany, for instance, which is more like a police state, the first thinking about the individual is that he has criminal tendencies. Therefore, you must stop him. from embarking on those tendencies
Okay,
or
but-
taking advantage of those tendencies.
Okay. Even though
So-
that I understand you, but that's very, very harshly put that by default, human beings tend to have criminal tendencies.
Yes, that's the point.
But the human being will definitely try to get away with as much as he possibly can,
That's the point.
unless there
That's
is
why you need
something
a
to say
system.
you can
That's
be-
why you
must be
have
checked.
the police force. In Germany, for instance, people don't want to be associated with the police because they don't want what they have done to go into the detail or database, which will live after them, even after they have died. So they are careful because they have strong institutions. There's a rule in Germany called Ordnung. Ordnung means that you must obey the rule of law, no matter who you are, whether you are even the chancellor or you're a farmer. You must, apply yourself to the rule of law, which doesn't exist here. We're talking about corruption. The president-elect came into the election with a profile, which is his antecedent as someone who had fought corruption. You remember the Umaru Diko issue. You remember they accused the change of Naira and all that, during his time, where he even tried to create somebody, in a diplomatic bag in the UK to bring him home to answer to questions on corruption
By any means necessary.
by any means necessary. If not that, the diplomats that bungled, that exercise, Umaru Diko would have been flown in a crate, a diplomatic bag, to come and answer to questions of corruption. That's the kind of profile, he had coming into this election. He had, of course, done 3 elections where he failed. This one, he succeeded. Now, so it is a mantra for him. He must fight corruption. And if he must fight corruption, how does he start?
Although he can't pull those kind of stunts as a Democrat.
Well, no. He has even said that he's a change,
Yes,
he's a new Democrat now. So, but I'm saying that it is a priority area for him. But corruption is not just about probes. But he has to look at, the activities of government over the past years in order to be able to make a sense of even what he's trying to do. He has to cleanse the origin table in order to even begin to proceed, with its own activities. So that's another area. The other third area is economy. The economy is in shambles. See what is happening. We're in the midst of a fuel crisis in Nigeria, 21st century. Number 6 largest producer and exporter of crude oil, and we're having fuel crisis. So it doesn't sit well with any logic.
When you say he's going to have to strengthen institutions, the people are also involved. The people he and his team will be leading, but then they're not leading themselves. They're leading all of us.
Yes.
I wonder what you think of the average Nigerian, the mentality that has sort of evolved as a result of what word can I use now? A sort of brutalization of his psyche, things that are most improbable, things that are even supposed to be impossible happen here. And we've all seen it. The ordinary Nigerian, I'm guessing, there's going to be very little that can shock him anymore in the realms of corruption. Having seen what we've seen an Inspector General of Police in shackle irons being dragged on the floor. There's that dramatic picture at that time. We've seen governors on the run because of corruption. And we've also seen, by the way, governors who have been cleared in Nigeria only to be, nailed in foreign lands. And in at least one case, when these people come back, there's no opprobrium. If anything, there's a sort of a welcome committee and a rehabilitation effort by the people. So what I'm saying here is that will the people in their mind really, from what we've seen in recent times, follow him on this particular tough journey?
I think people will follow him. People have already started.
You think people can do a paradigm shift?
Yes.
That this is not in order.
Let's even take how he got into this position now. How he won the election. He didn't win the election by his own hard work only. It's also because of the people. People got interested, and said they needed a change, not just a change in personalities, but a change in system. so that they knew someone who can bring about change,
Okay.
so that their laws can be bettered.
Because they had his reputation to
Because
go
they
by.
had- yes. So
And
he is
that
coming in,
reputation, apart from anti-corruption, he's also seen as a very disciplined person.
someone who has lived a Spartan life.
Very good.
Spartan life. He lives in a modest, accommodation till today, as an ex-president. Someone who has been Minister of Petroleum.
Yes.
Who has been a governor. Who has headed the PTF.
And he was the head of state before all of that.
That's what I'm saying. And he continued living. He didn't go to build a mansion on a hilltop, for instance. So
I don't,
that
not
kind
that
of
I'm
person-
sure what you're talking about.
Well, yeah. Well, what I'm saying is this.
But I hear you.
Yes, what I'm saying is this. The people, I'm sure, we key into the program. They are already prepared.
Once they see that there's the Yoruba saying, and I'm sure it's in other languages as well, look, you want to check the condition, freshness or otherwise of a fish, you smell the head.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Nigerians are the easiest to rule in the world. I can tell you this. Yet, the same Nigerians...
You think?
Yes. They only need to know what the leader is doing. Once the leader lives by example and shows that he's clean and neat and decent and respectful, Nigerians will follow that person, even sheepishly.
But why do people say what you must have heard, that Nigeria is the most difficult place to
No,
govern?
it's not. It's not. It's not. It's just the way leaders are. It's because the leaders have modeled things, and created the difficulty. Because there's a crisis of philosophy. Nigerians don't lead by ideology or by any philosophy. When we started, at independence, we had a philosophy as a people, as a country. But we abandoned all that, Now, talking about the people also must set an agenda for themselves, not for the incoming administration, because they must also begin to do the right things. You don't expect governance, good governance, from an administration when you are not a good citizen yourself. So I believe that setting agenda is not just about the administration alone, it's also about the people. So the people must also take into account that they must do the right things so that they can help the administration to perform.
But always keeping an eye on what the leadership is doing.
Of course.
So that's
Nigerians are
that's
very
how
watchful.
That's how we can know the extent of our commitment to their
That's
ideas.
the point. The Nigerians are very watchful. That's why once the leadership derails, you see them, they also begin the scatterbrain kind of activity. They say, okay, if the leader is doing this way, then also we can do this way. And that's one principle I think Buhari is bringing in. The principle is that if you must come to equity, you must come with clean hands. And once he sets that tone, Nigerians will follow.
Indeed. Okay, you mentioned some of the attributes of the general, the incoming president. Discipline, very strong point. Spartan, all that conspicuous consumption kind of business doesn't seem to be his style. Nigerians have not had that. I don't know if it's a matter of in a long time or ever had that kind of a president who doesn't arrive with a couple of Bentleys in the garage before he came in. Now, the trick perhaps is going to be his co-travelers, selecting his co-travelers. Now, because all of them must be on the same page, and he can't afford for anybody in his team, as it were, to be sabotaging his objective, his desire. Now, he said, and I don't know the extent to which it's going to be possible, but he said that he's going to have a small cabinet. In fact, there was an article some time ago about why my cabinet is going to be small. We know that there's wastage in government, there's over-bloated government, and that's because there's the political cost after the election of having to say thank you, having to reward some people. How do you think that's going to work? Because that kind of machinery also participated in bringing him to power. There are all sorts of volunteers who were not doing it just for the sake of discipline. They were doing it with an eye on a reward. And what do you think in that regard?
Yes, there will be political IOs that he must settle. No doubt about that, because he didn't just coast into power by his own hard work or goodwill only. People supported him. People actually put a bridge on which he crossed to the other side. So what are you going to do about such people? So you are going to have political IOUs, a heap of it that you must settle. But the decision is up to your discretion to decide which IOUs to settle and
Okay.
which one not to settle.
Okay.
So that's his own decision to make. But I think that he's going to settle some political IOs. After that, then he can, begin on his own track.
Mm.
So the first thing to do is that he must select, a good team, a quality team. What we have not had in Nigeria is quality thinking in governance. Nigeria is the only country, about the only country in the world, where things are managed without a think tank.
On the national level.
And even at the national level,
Because
even
some
at the
state
state
governments
level,
have
well,
made
yes, equivalent,
efforts
yes, something
towards
that
that
looks
direction.
like it, but do they even accede to the rules and regulations of such a think tank? Sometimes they set these things up, as window dressing.
Okay.
They don't even listen to, like what our ex-president once said, that you may give me advice, but it's up to me to take it or
yes.
not to take it.
Yes.
So I believe that
But that's true, really. At the end of the day, I mean,
Yes.
the buck does stop on the president's desk.
that's the point.
But
what I'm saying,
not to be disdainful.
No, but what I'm saying is that modern governments are run by think tanks. In America, you have small groups of people, put in place, established, and paid tons and tons of dollars just to think. Just to think. Once they generate the ideas are used by government, to drive their programs. You cannot develop in this modern time without thinking.
Okay, that's where, in fact, it goes back to the discipline that we talked about earlier.
Yes.
Let's say, for instance, you have this think tank. They come up with these ideas. There is the matter now of, if you agree with them, once you've agreed with the ideas that have been selected, sticking with it. And oftentimes people cut corners and say, just this one time. So that's going to be something that perhaps people are going to be more hopeful with Buhari that, well, once he's committed, once he has them, he's going to stay committed to those ideas. And so he shall be going for them.
Yes, but I also have a problem. I don't know how modern Buhari is at 72. I don't know how innovative he is at 72, and then as a military, dictator before, who has changed to be a Democrat. I don't know how he's attuned with modernity, with IT, and with all that. So that's also another issue. If he's innovative, if he's creative, if he's IT savvy, he's going to be able to, relate, with his team, if he's going to have a quality team. If you have, somebody like Professor Yemi Osinbajo as a vice president, if you ask him to assemble a team, he's going to assemble a team at that level. So how is Buhari going to cope within this, context? That's one question.
Okay, there are those who will say that, but why won't he cope?
Yeah, he can cope.
Exactly,
I believe he can cope.
exactly,
because of
he's at the head of a team
Yes.
Of experts, of
Yes.
technocrats, of IT savvy people,
Yes.
all of which must be presented to him. And it just might well be that these are different times.
Yes.
And a person might be 72, but really,
Yeah, but I'll give you an
Sure.
example.
Sure.
Henrique Cardoso, the former leader of Brazil. Yes, he was an activist who was driven away by the military. He went about teaching in all kinds of universities to earn a living. Eventually asked him to come back. So he returned to the country. And then they gave him a job, to be the Minister of Foreign Affairs. So he was managing that. There was a time Japan was in trouble with Brazil. He went on a short diplomacy to mend fences. So he was returning to Brazil and came through Washington. And he got a call, from the president, the head of state then, a military man, said that he must pack his bag and baggage and come back, that he's going to be the Minister of Finance. And he said, no, sir, I can't do that because I'm just a professor of sociology. I don't have any idea about finance. But the man was adamant. He appointed him. In fact, he went on radio and television to announce that Cardoso had become the Minister of Finance. So he was asked to fly back. He flew back. So he said, knowing nothing about finance, he had to assemble a team. And the problem with Brazil then was inflation.
Okay.
Triple or quadruple digit inflation. So he assembled a team of experts and he said to them, please, give me a program. But please, bring down the program so I can explain to the ordinary Brazilian what it means. And within a couple of weeks, they assembled a program for him. And he went on radio and television and told them that he had a 3-point agenda. 1, inflation. 2, inflation. 3, inflation. I was going to fight inflation. Within 1 year, he fought inflation to 1 digit. And that was what led to him becoming the president of Brazil.
Okay.
So the morale here is that you don't have to know everything as a leader.
Exactly.
You don't have to.
Once you've got a good team
Yes.
working with you.
Yes. The only thing, ask the team to break down whatever philosophy or theory or hypothesis.
So that's
you know,
why I
they
don't
have.
have any concerns
So,
about
so I'm just trying to agree
what
with
you said.
Yes.
That
No, I'm reversing myself.
Okay, but Nigerians understandably are impatient for change. Having endured, if you want, I can't think of a better word immediately, the situation we've had in the last 16 years. What do you think, because it's a heck of a job before Buhari and his team, the rot that was allowed to set in. You talked about the audience tables earlier. It's now their lot to clean these tables out. And while all of this is going on, people are going to be patient. They're not going to be seeing very much of an improvement in terms of how they were yesterday. What kind of a honeymoon period do you think is going to be reasonable? You know, Nigerians, not Nigerians, some politicians, we have this 100 days mark, 200 days mark, 300. When can Nigerians reasonably begin to say that, you know, okay, we waited a while and we have not seen anything yet?
I've been asked this question time and again, and I always said 100 days is enough time, you know, for the incoming administration to set the tone.
For something to change.
Yes.
For
us to begin to
for there
see.
to be a different tone discernible by everybody.
From 16 years up to this time, 100 days should be enough for Nigerians to begin to say, okay, we agree, we are going to go with this administration. This is the way they are going to go. Nigerians are the most patient people on the face of this earth. And I keep saying that 99% of Nigerians cannot raise a finger against their leaders when they mess up. And they are so docile. And this has given temerity to the leaders to engage in purity and all kinds of things. 16 years on, and Nigerians are like this. So I believe that 100 days is enough honeymoon because Buhari wanted to be the leader. So he must have been preparing himself. So it's not coming to him as his fourth time.
His fourth time.
Yes.
So he must have had something of a program from the very first time to the second,
I
third,
expect
and
that
fourth.
he is an administration that should hit the ground running. Even as, you know, the transition is going on, I believe that he must have been setting up his team, you know, in his mental, context, so that once he takes over on May 29, you know, he moves on. So 100 days should be enough to have a honeymoon, and then Nigerians will start, you know, judging whether they are going to do well or not.
Interesting. Okay. What we'll do now, Dr. Idoko, is that we'll take a short break, and we will come back and look at this whole point about how soon can we expect a difference to be made, because we're hearing all sorts of understandably emotional, you know, utterances. Somebody phoned in yesterday and said, you know what, anybody who has 25 million naira in his account, in view of the intense poverty that we have, should just be brought out to explain. Show us where your shop is. Show us what you're selling in your shop, so we can evaluate if indeed, okay, your 25 million is okay.
Well, it doesn't happen that way.
It doesn't happen that way. Okay, we'll talk about this.
We shall talk
we'll talk about this when we come back, and of course, we'll also include your call. Stay with us, please. We'll be right back. Welcome back, and our guest is Dr. Nick Idoko. He's a public affairs analyst and also an adjunct lecturer at Pan-African University. Nick, just before we went, we were talking about how things were going to change because they have to change. Everybody agrees they have to change. But you made the interesting point earlier, much earlier, on that most human beings will try to get away with as much as they possibly can. It is having good systems in place, good institutions in place that check us all. Now, in the country, we've been used, and okay, it's a very unique point in the sense that Nigerians go all over the world. Most Nigerians, they go all over the world and conform and behave according to their laws. But here it's different. A Nigerian will not feel embarrassed about jumping a queue, for example, just taking something base, which he would never think of doing wherever he went, whether it was Australia or maybe even Ghana. It's like once out of home, the Nigerian knows how to perform. So I don't know why he's schizophrenic in this sort of a way. At home, he's one person. Abroad, he's a totally different person. How are the two going to be merged? Because that's what we need.
Yes, that's why I started by saying that we need to, build a system, strengthen institutions.
Yes.
Because
okay.
these are going to be...
I hold the point about institutions, please.
Yeah.
Let me bring in Adesina, who has called in and wants to contribute to this conversation. Okay. Good morning, Mr. Adesina.
Morning, sir.
Thank you for calling in.
Well, we thank God for what you are doing about it. And also, good evening to the one who is there.
Dr. Idoko.
Yesterday, maybe you didn't quite get what I said. I said former civil servants or current civil servants who have more than 25 minutes or more in their account come and pay. And then if contract from the government, not just everybody. Now, what I want to say this morning is that Buhari is a product of prayer. And,
a product of
prayers.
Prayers. The prayers of Nigerians. Was answered in giving us Buhari as the president-elect. Oh, all right.
Individually, in the family, in places of watch, because it's the only chance they have. There was a some time ago, if I am a pastor, praying with other pastors, and God said that Nigeria is number 6 position, minimum position in the world, not the 2020 or whatever they are talking about. It is prayer that we take up there, and we are good there. Thank you.
Mr. Adesina, your line went bad, but thank you very much for calling. I think, okay, so it was Mr. Adesina who made that particular 25 million comment, but then he's sort of refining it or clarifying it that, look, I'm not just saying anybody, but from the political class, I think is what he said, as much as his distorted line could
because there are decent Nigerians
of
who are
course.
earning their living.
There are so many that you can think of off head.
Yes, so
but
it's not everybody that is.
In the political class, because you see, people have said, as just about every Nigerian knows, that the two biggest industries in this country, I think on the one hand they say it's politics. And I think I just excuse myself from mentioning the other one.
Okay. Now, you were making a point about Nigerians going outside of our shores and behaving themselves. But when they come inside, they are a different set of people. Because there is a debasement of our value system. We don't have values anymore. The traditional...
But is that true?
No, well, the kind of values, to what values?
As Nigerians, because when you get to your village, you dare not go against their values.
No, well, you do. Well, today, even the values in the village, the values have been bastardized.
Okay.
You find corruption, in various places in the village, where you have even elections rigged.
But when you
like
said
that,
values, I was talking about taboos.
Well, there are taboos.
People don't violate taboos in the village, but you come to the national political level and violate taboos.
I'll give you an instance.
Sure.
Let me just buttress this point by saying this. There is a problem we have, the dual civic public. That's what we have, our public.
What's that?
The dual civic public.
What's that?
I'm going to illustrate it. Now, when you have a minister, for instance, at the center, at the federal level, who steals money and brings home, maybe builds schools or whatever, that minister is hailed. If he goes to build a mansion, to maybe during the burial of his father or his mother, people hail him as a minister that is doing well. Nobody cares where he steals the money from. Okay, let's assume the minister returns home on retirement and he's made the president of the village association or the community association, and then where they are contributing money, you know, poor people are contributing money, and then he embezzles the fund. Can you imagine what will happen to that man? They will ostracize him.
Yes.
Because
yes.
he's taken from their own.
Yes.
So that's the kind of dual, you know, civic public we have. You know, it's the two-faced split personality
yes,
public.
and the example that, CY, one second, please. Okay, let me not waste any more of your time. Go ahead, I'll come back to the point I wanted to make after CY.
See, good morning, Mr. Yori.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning to you, Dr. Doko.
How are you?
I have a lot of problems when it comes to credentials and, how will I call it, academic titles. You understand? I want to advise the incoming president. When you are talking about technocrats, it should bring people, you understand, that their economic principle and program, you understand, are going to affect the lives of the people. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
They should bring in people, technocrats or whatever they call it, that their economy programs and policies and principles is going to reflect in the lives of ordinary Nigeria. We've had enough of all these, how will I call it, academic credentials and books, theories and all that, like the one we have now, Minister of Finance. If we come outside, say a lot of mumbo jumbo things, and it doesn't reflect in the lives of Nigerians. So the president-elect should be wary of so-called technocrats that will come in, you understand, without, you know, having a clear cut of what they want to do, just coming to blow grammar and blow grammar. We are tired of all this grammar. We want to see economic policy that will affect day-to-day lives of every Nigerian. Thank you. God bless.
Indeed. Thank you very much, CY, for calling in. Now, Nick, going back to the point you were making just before we had to listen to Nick.
Yes.
You illustrated.
Yes.
A man goes to his village. Should he dare steal from the funds of the village,
yes,
he will be ostracized.
This same man was stealing from the federal government, and they were hailing him. The same public would ostracize him if he was stealing from theirs.
Okay, I don't know if they were actually hailing him, because they could claim not to know what he was up to. But that's not my point.
Well, okay.
The point I wanted
Nigerians.
to yes, they could claim to know what he was up to.
Yeah.
But could it be that in the illustration you've provided, in the village, it is seen as our own? In Abuja, at the national level, it's the national cake. And if you don't grab what you need to, what you can, you know, you are going to be the poorer for it. It's a sort of a no man's land. Now, that has been going on for a while. People just go to Abuja, grab what they could grab, and come out of there. And everybody hails them. But go to your village in wherever and just try that kind of a number and see how you'll be received. So how this difference, how's that going to change?
Yeah, that also, before I come to the change, that also applies to people when they pay tax. If Nigerians pay their tax, they will not allow anybody to steal their money. They will protect it.
You mean?
If Nigerians pay tax, indeed, you know, that the development fund we have is from our taxes as Nigerians. They will never allow any government official to steal from it. But because it is all money, nobody's money, so people can as well take it as much as they want.
You're the second person in as many days who has brought up this matter of tax. Yesterday we had an expert talking about tax as well. First of all, that we're badly undertaxed. The net is, you know, is...
although in some places we're overtaxed.
But although also businesses are complaining that we're overtaxing. So there's a sense in which they don't sort of own it. But let me take Uwoma. Let me bring Uwoma into this conversation. Good morning, Uwoma.
Yes, good morning, Yuri.
Thank you for calling in.
Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning.
Yuri, the question you asked about why Nigerians behave well abroad, and I think if you agree with me that the elites of this country are the enemies of this country, if the elite and the people in leadership show example and live by example, this nation will move forward. I give you an example. Who are the people that are breaking our laws? You find out that the people who are the custodian of these laws are the ones breaking it. So who will hold them responsible? And until our laws begin to hold people accountable, you know who you are, will move nowhere. Let our laws stop respecting a group of people and be punishing the other group. Let the law be law. Whosoever is faulted will be punished, irrespective of how high you are. Until we begin to do that, things will not change. Because why they respect the law abroad is that whoever you are, no matter how big you are, if you even commit ordinary traffic offense, you will be persecuted for it. But here in Nigeria, it's not like that. So let's look into that and make our way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It goes back to the rule of law.
Yes, the rule
and
of
that
law.
Nobody is above the rule of law.
Nobody should be above the law.
I told you that an expert told us yesterday about taxation, and I had observed that, and just about everybody knows, that one of the worst crimes you can commit in America is not to murder someone, is to evade tax
Yes,
payment.
even in Europe.
It doesn't matter who you are. It
Yes.
doesn't matter how big you are, how successful you are.
Yes.
Constantly, people are being
The
shamed.
case of Steffi Graf. Steffi Graf
example.
was a star.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
her father evaded tax, concealed some earnings of Steffi Graf. He went to jail.
This is, but can
He
you
went to
imagine? Can you imagine a Nigeria where a person will end up in jail for evading tax or hiding some streams of revenue or whatever?
That is
Most Nigerians can't even. In fact, most Nigerians will probably think it's too harsh. Like,
Yes.
what is it?
Yes,
Ask
is it
him
just
for the
tax?
money and,
When
let him
people
give
are
it to
stealing
you.
billions,
Why are you going to
and
jail?
then you just give them a pat on the wrist? You know. Now, let me give two examples. One is Indonesia. The new leader of Indonesia is Joko Widodo. You know, there's a way they call him. You know, he came to power, you know, making pronouncements, very harsh pronouncements, that if you have to have a party, for instance, you must serve local meals, you know, like corn or whatever. You don't have to import fine wines and then, you know, beverages, you know, and salads from other countries. That's the head of a state. That you must rely on your own products. Don't import anything. And don't throw, you know, big parties. And he has restricted government officials from participating or even throwing parties. Whatever parties they must engage must be small party. That's the leader, a modern leader. He
Yes.
took over just a year ago.
Yes.
Now, if Buhari, with his pattern life, you know, coming to power in Nigeria, he must start with principles. He must start with discipline. He was the man that created war against indiscipline, though as a military, you know, leader. But it's not too different. You know, the situation is not too different. After all, after that, Lagos State, you know, replicated it by a Kai, you know, kick against indiscipline.
Indiscipline.
You know, just another way of saying why.
Yeah,
So I believe that if he goes back, you know, to that, he may not implement it in exactly the same way. But when people cannot go to Pedestal Bridge and cross, but they prefer to cross, you know, across the highway,
Yes.
you know, and then get killed in the process. They can't queue at petrol stations or at, you know, bus stations. So then there's a fundamental, you know, pathological problem in the system.
And this is a problem that Buhari is going to have to address. We'll take another break, but stay with us, please. And indeed, we'll also bring on another commentator. We'll be right back. Welcome back, and we've since been joined by Adebiyi Fashoyin. Mr. Fashoyin is a corporate marketing consultant. He's also former president, Joint Action on ICT Advancement Development, but he also, and that's where he's relevant to us, he's a political affairs analyst as well. Thank you very much for coming on, Adebiyi.
Thank you, sir.
Uwoma, one of our regulars, minutes ago, he was addressing something that we had said on here about the paradox of Nigerians being model citizens abroad, excellent people, and why here anything seems to go. And Uwoma had made the point, which I entirely agree with, that at the end of the day, it's just a handful of people, relatively speaking, but they are carrying the label Nigerians, and they are the people giving us this bad name. So it's going back to the incoming administration. It has this gigantic task to sort of reshape our view of ourselves. and this probably they're going to have to do by example, I'm imagining. But give me your thoughts on that. The incongruity of the Nigerian goes abroad, excellent chap, or chapess for that matter. Here is a problem.
Absolutely, because the system itself determines how you behave. You're out there, you can see the system is there to tell you what to do. You know that, the crime and punishment is there.
Yes.
It works.
Okay.
You're not because you are a former governor, you're going to be arrested for graft, and some militants come up and say, no, you can't take this guy, and then you go to London and a foreign government jails him. So you can't have a system that protects all these character flaws. But when you go out, you know that those things don't function anywhere there. You know that you have to do what has to be done. I remember the first time I ever traveled out of Nigeria, and to America, and my junior sister was, driving, and we got to this, where the lights were. And I looked around, I was like, let's go, nobody's waiting. She said, no. No, I said, why? She said she would let me know someday. It wasn't long after, I think 2 weeks after, and then she showed me an envelope and said she ran through a light. And it was her picture, the car, the venue, the time, and they said, meet us at court, so, and she says, that's it.
Seemingly out of the blue.
Absolutely. So you know that you can't, but here you can. I mean, somebody jumps in front of you and says, okay, you commit offense. Do you know who I am? And the guy is afraid. He doesn't know who you really are, because...
Can all of that be changed overnight? I guess this is the question, because Nigerians are impatient for change, and I don't know if this change they want includes a pledge to be disciplined on their own part as well.
I sincerely don't envy Buhari right now. Believe me. He's going to have a toga when it comes in. The first thing is, one of the things they flew about him was he was a dictator, he was a strong-armed ruler, and this. And there's the other part that he has to do what he has to do now as a politician. Okay, he did the why, and up till today we're still doing why, in whatever way. I mean, you see people queuing up. These are things that he did. He did say at that time, okay, nobody carries cocaine anymore, and they pleaded, and he said, look, anybody does it, they're going to die. And some people did it, and they died, and they used it against him. So now he's going in. He's going to be conscious of the fact that, how am I going to do? How will I now get the assembly to do most of the things that I really would have done by maybe military fiat? Wouldn't they say again that, okay, the guy, didn't we tell you, the Leopard never changed his skin? That was one of the bylines of the elections. It's not going to change that. So I really don't envy him, but I think that he has made up his mind. We want to believe that. There's no other two way out, about it. He has to do what is right, and that is that he has to look at the moral fiber. He has to make sure that he instills confidence. He has a Spartan lifestyle. Everybody knew that. I mean,
which is working, is going to work for him.
It's going to work for him
because he's not going to be missing anything.
Yeah. And I was listening to you guys when you talked about tax. I really would have said that people would pay tax when they know that the ones you received is judiciously used.
Yes.
There were people who wrote the government here and said, Mr. Fashola, we've not been paying tax for years, but seeing what you have done, we can see the road, we can see this, we're going to start paying taxes. So people will do what is right.
If the leadership
Absolutely.
directs in that direction.
Yes, in the right direction.
Alaba, good morning. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Already, good morning, sir.
Thank you for calling in.
Is that a good morning once again?
Good
All the
morning.
way from radio to TV. Already.
Thank you.
You have Alabala from Saboni Baujo.
Okay.
Yeah, Chief Yori, what we are talking about, you have been talking about this transition, maybe it start on Monday or last week. Look, we are talking about morality here. It's part of what General Muhammadu Buhari, Nigeria, he wants to bring into the system. You know what we lack is morality. When we see somebody stealing 50 billion, 10 billion, for what? You understand? And when you check the background of those people, they are very rich. Most of them are very rich in their family. They are still stealing big billion. So we are talking about morality here. And before we can get the morality, most of our institutions must be sought back. They must go back into their normal system, like the EFCC, like the ICPC, like the NOA. I don't even think maybe that one is existing. The National Electrical Agency. Look, if all these things can come back to their normal stand, I think Nigeria too will come to the normal. What does mean as a Buhari? Mr. Orebi, I make one comment this morning already that if a situation is about to go back, it starts from the head. You understand? The problem Nigeria is facing today is leadership. Not that we don't have the good law, we have the best law in the world.
Okay.
But
Okay, well, thank you very much for calling, Mr. Devi Fashoyin. You were making him Orebi, but we understand. We understand what you're talking about. Nick, we're returning to the point of taxation and people being participative. All of us working as a team. That is I bring my own little 2-kobo and put it in there. Yeah. You know, whoever has a tax bill of 200 million, let him pay it. But the important thing is that nobody is let off the hook. And so we all feel co-travelers, part owners. And so we all feel interested. But for a long time, a lot of Nigerians, until this election, when something galvanized them to say that maybe it's not going to be the same, they had given up that, look, it doesn't matter what we do, we're held captive. In fact, the president is reported to have said that he feels that he was caged, whatever that means. A lot of Nigerians also felt that. Now, whatever it is that made the outgoing presidents feel that way, caged, that's the one thing that President Buhari, when the time comes for him to be called so, is going to have to watch out against.
Yes.
Is it not?
Yes, I think he was talking metaphorically.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Let me go to a commercial break. Okay. We've got to make some money. And then we'll come right back and I'll come back to you. Okay. Stay with us, please. Welcome back. So, Dr. Doko, you were going to
yes, I was talking about participation.
Yes.
That Nigerians must be involved in their own government. That's what they have not, the experience they have not had, you know, for 16 years, even or more. Now, I would imagine that the incoming administration of General Muhammad Buhari should throw back development to the people, get them involved. It's because Nigerians are not involved. They are even ignored most of the time. And then the leaders are carrying on as if Nigerians are not important. In
spite of all the representatives we have at the state level, in spite of all the representatives in Abuja and senators in Abuja.
Those people don't believe that they are representing anybody or anybody was responsible for their being there. That was why they did not care about the people. Many of them didn't have a constituency offices, for instance, and they were not answerable to the people because they believed that having rigged the election, the people did not contribute to their winning the election, and then, of course, achieving that position. Therefore, they owed nobody any obligation. But I believe that now, General Buhari must involve the people, must involve Nigerians, because it's their government. What is it about if you do not involve Nigerians? If they are paying tax, they want to see what you are using the tax for. Okay. And if they can see that, they will be able to participate.
Now, that's one more way in which General Buhari has his work cut out for him. We've been hearing that expression, having his work cut out for him for a long time. Showing the people that, well, he has said it. I read a quote of him that, by him, that you've got to persuade Nigerians that their rights are not being trampled upon. Otherwise, I'm paraphrasing now, otherwise you will not know rest. So he already is like that. And you've heard his utterances. He's been talking about people, interviewers have tried to get his perspective on a certain thing and said, look, the questions you're asking me really are party questions. These decisions have to come from the party. You're not going to make me speak before my party has said this is the direction. So all of those are nice sounding things for the so-called great dictator, Islamist, who is going to wipe out every other form of belief in this country. Are you optimistic that this is a different scenario and he's going to be able to bring everybody together? Because that is the aspiration.
Absolutely. When you derive your legitimacy from the people, you know you owe it to them to give back to them, to the society, because they brought you in. But if you're an illegitimate government, you did talk about if you rigged your way in, you don't owe anybody anything. But look at the reform within the electoral process. It may not be the best right now, but we all know now, like he said, people voted for who came in now.
Yes.
Okay, so they also know that you can vote them out. We saw that now
That's
for the
right.
first time.
That's right.
So the truth of the matter is he has his work cut out for him because he has true legitimacy with the people, and so he will definitely. And the people, I have this uncanny confidence from somewhere that everyone believes that this is the time for true change, and it will come.
And so I guess both you gentlemen think that there is reason to be hopeful.
Yes,
There
there
is.
is reason to be
There is.
hopeful. I believe there is reason because, as he said also, Buhari has a job cut out for him. And I know he has a mission to accomplish. And that is why he has tried 3 times, failed 3 times,
Yes.
the 4th time,
No.
you know. So there's a divine mission which he must accomplish. I think the God of all of us wants to use him. You know, he's the pencil in the hand of God.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nick Idoko. Dr. Nick Idoko is a public affairs analyst, and also Mr. Adebi Fashoyin. Thank you very much, public analyst as well, political analyst as well. Thank you very much for coming on.
My pleasure.
I'm Yori Folari.